Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. Hey, if the conversation in the green room with our guest today, Roger Devine, is any indication, this is going to be a great episode. Roger Devine, co-founder of schoolauction.net. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about fundraising in uncertain times, which I think we can all agree, whatever your mission, vision, or values are, this is where we are. But we're going to be talking about events and specifically the nexus between events and auctions and how we look at this. And so this is going to be a really interesting conversation that's certainly timely. We have presenting sponsors each and every episode, and they are timely in their own fashion. They include Bloomerang American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and Fundraisers Friday. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, and I am delighted to welcome Roger Devine, co-founder of schoolauction.net. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Julia.
Okay,
Appreciate the opportunity.
I'm like thrilled to have you on. I got to ask you, how did you get into this business?
I was a PTA president.
I knew it.
I was a software guy who had just been laid off in 2006. I had printed my little business cards that said consultant and was kind of flailing around for something to do. And went looking for software, got in touch with my local schools foundation up here in Portland, Oregon, and they put me in touch with a couple of guys who had built something for one of the other schools. And I went to beg them to use their free software, because I didn't want to pay for any.
Mhm.
And they were like, "Hey, why don't we start a company?" I was like, "Okay, I don't have anything else I'm doing. Why not? Let's go."
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I love that you came to this amazing product with two backgrounds. One as somebody that's on one side of the table and somebody who's on the other side of the table. Um, Really briefly, has this whole auction concept and raising money for a school changed since then?
It's changing every year. There's a tremendous amount of innovation that happens in the event space there. And school auction chairs in particular tend to talk to each other, quite a bit there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, when we first got into the business, it was all about live events, with paddles and paper bid sheets.
That's
We added online auction capacity shortly thereafter. Then mobile bidding came along, and we added mobile bidding. And there continue to be innovations and developments that I think are really kind of fun, and I love seeing them. One of the things coming out of the pandemic that have seen across a lot of our customer base is the idea that they still want to have events. They want to get together. We like having events. They help us build our community. They're good for resilience and other things. But we also don't need them to be quite so frantic or chaotic. So let's take our silent auction, put it online ahead of time, close it, don't ever bring it to the ballroom, and then in the ballroom we're drinking, we're dancing, we're having a live auction, maybe some raffles, and we don't have to worry about the silent auction component of it then, which makes the night a lot easier.
very interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, let's get into it because one of the things that I really want to hear from you is, and something you pointed out, is that events have a lot of impacts that maybe we don't always know about. I think so oftentimes we look at the bottom line number and we're heroes or we're villains at the end of the event. Talk to us about what are some of these impacts that we should be thinking about and recognizing.
Well, before I dive into that, I do want to say that my priority when I'm planning out a fundraising event, and I do plan out at least one or two a year for my Rotary Club, things like that,
Mhm.
is that I want to treat a fundraiser as if it is a fundraiser. I expect to make money at them. I do not expect them to break even. I do not
Okay.
expect them to lose money. I don't think that that's an attitude that any organization should have going into their fundraiser. Fundraisers are here primarily to make money.
Mhm.
However, events also have ancillary benefits that I think we really need to put some spotlight on, especially in the current moment. One, they're going to drive community engagement. They're going to drive resilience. You're getting the people who support you. And generally, when we're talking about an in-person event, we're getting people together who at least have some connection to the mission. You know,
Yeah.
whether they're recipients of services or they've seen it in action in their community, and this is their cause that they want to support. You know, and you're bringing them together and you're reminding them that your nonprofit is still out there. You're reminding them that the programs are still going. You're reminding them that the nonprofit is still having impact out there. We're in a time where we are all very, very, very distracted.
Mm.
And I think events are a great way to at least once a year get everybody together and say, hey, look, you gave us some money to do some great things. We've
Yeah.
gone out, we've done some great things with that money. Can we
Mhm.
have some more? You
Yeah.
know? I think that events also are exceptionally good at cultivating younger donors. You know, they
Okay.
may not have the fattest wallets, may not be the closest to the end of their actuarial span here on Earth. So, you know, they're not the fat wallets with a year to live. Yeah. And
Yeah.
if you can go get those guys, go get those guys. Go absolutely get the guys with the fat wallets and 6 months to live and
Oh my
give them
God.
everything. But we
That's
also know that we
hilarious.
have to cultivate a new generation of donors. You know, we have to cultivate more people to step up and be part of that ongoing thing. Events
Mhm.
are a great way to introduce younger donors to your cause. Great
Mhm.
way for, you know, them to make contact with more established donors who
Mhm.
can help mentor them, you know, in
Right.
their philanthropic endeavors.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, these are really great. There's another thing that I want to bring up as an advantage, but I don't think it should just be this. You know, events I think are really, really accessible and doable by smaller nonprofits
Mhm.
who may not have as much trained development talent on their team.
Okay.
But I'm here to say that the bigger nonprofits, the ones that have always considered their events to be, oh, you know, the redheaded stepchild of their fundraising mix,
Mhm.
should take a lesson from some of the smaller nonprofits because you can run these profitably. You can run these as actual, you know, significant fundraisers. All you got
Mhm.
to do is, you know, take a look at how the smaller guys are doing it because they depend upon doing it.
I liked what you said about right straight out the gate was you expect to make money. This is not
Yes,
a friend raiser. This is a fundraiser. And there are places where you can have the friend raiser, and
absolutely.
do that. But I appreciate that because it seems to me that all too often nonprofits miss two things. They don't understand what their costs are, and at the end of the day, they're shocked by what certain things they have to cover, and then they don't have a goal. A lot of times, you don't have a goal. And fundraising 101, you got to have a goal. You got to know what you're trying to go after. So I love how you kind of started us off with this conversation. You've mentioned resilience a couple of times. What what does that look like to you in the context of looking at auctions, and what is specifically strategic resilience?
I think that at an event, you've got an opportunity primarily to um, you've got an opportunity to demonstrate your impact out in the community. You've got an opportunity usually to put this in front of your donors there, and
Mhm.
to communicate the message that we are still here. We are still taking, you know, we are still taking our challenge seriously. We're out there meeting our mission moment, etc. Um, I think it can be a way for staff members and volunteers who are working on missions to get some recognition from the donor database. You know, one of the
Mhm.
beautiful things about a school fundraising auction, and you know, I do work with a lot of schools, so I'll bring that up as an example, is the ability to vet the teachers. You
Yeah.
know, basically to say, you know, these beloved teachers who, you know, every parent in the school is counting on, they
Yeah.
get some recognition, they get some love, they get some appreciation, And I think this helps put wind under their wings going forward.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that you said that because I'm from a family of multi-generational educators, and that's magical thinking that you said that
Yeah.
because all too often this is something that schools and the families spend a lot of energy on, and yet they don't invite or include the team that they're trying to support. Like
Yeah,
you said,
and
through the fundraiser.
even take it outside of schools. One of the things we know about working for nonprofits is that they are, the decision to do so is often mission driven.
Mhm.
It's often that I want to work for this nonprofit because I want to help accomplish what they're setting out to do. And they can be grueling work environments.
Yep.
Many nonprofits are understaffed.
Yep.
The people are underpaid,
Mhm.
and being able to bring those people to a place where they are recognized for the sacrifices that they've made for the mission, I think helps you build a lot of resilience within your organization.
Roger, I love that you brought this up. And I'm thinking back, I mean, we've done more than 1,300 episodes here on the Nonprofit Show. We're in our sixth year of broadcasting. I don't know if anyone's ever brought that up. We talk about events a lot. I mean, my gosh, we've had to, and just think about how you and I are discussing the evolution of event management and what events look like now, you know, during COVID, post COVID. But I haven't really heard anybody tie that together shamefully. And so, yeah, that's really cool that you brought that up. I so appreciate that. And I think too, it just, in this day and age where we're so concerned about retaining our top level staff, making our staff have pride in where they work and encourage them, to your point, within a grueling sector, this could be just one of those things that really helps boost everybody's morale and commitment.
Hmm.
Very interesting, very, very interesting. Well, let's get on and talk about something else that kind of navigates us towards this conversation even more, because you're talking about accessibility. How can we be more accessible in this day and age? I mean, what does that look like to you, and what are you seeing be successful in the marketplace?
Um, I'm seeing a lot of adaptations are being made. Many of them are working pretty well. Um, when it comes to making your event more accessible, the tactics that I normally focus on are variable pricing for your tickets. You should be able to make free tickets available to your volunteers. And of
Okay.
course, if you're going to do that, do a volunteer swap with another organization so that the free ticket that you give to your volunteer is one they can actually enjoy. So that's out there. Do a volunteer swap. So you send your volunteers to work somebody else's event, they send theirs to work your, and then everybody can enjoy their own free tickets.
Love
Um, at a fundraising event, realize that the heat, the light, the spotlight is deservedly going to be placed on the 20% of your audience, or maybe it's 10% of your audience that's going to donate most of the money.
Okay.
You are going to have fat wallets out there. And I do expect that you should try to get as many fat wallets as you possibly can into the room.
Right.
However, they're not going to be responsible for all of the fundraising. And again, getting to issues of resilience and community engagement, you should make it in your event such that the guy who comes there and has got, say, 25 bucks in his pocket,
Mhm.
he's not a big donor, but you should find a way to get the 25 bucks out of his pocket for
Okay.
two reasons. One, you're a fundraiser and you need to get the money. Let's not forget that.
Right.
Two, this guy has come to your event. He's expressed a desire to be part of the solution, to be part of the mission and the outcome. You shouldn't let him go home without the opportunity to contribute.
Mhm.
And so, what does this mean in terms of how you build your event? It means that not everything should be biddable. It means
Okay.
that you should have moments for people to spend money on fixed price items, whether those are, future signups, or whether they're raffle tickets, or whether they're donations in the paddle raise, or whether they're just gift cards on a pick board.
Mhm.
Give somebody an opportunity to spend the limited amount they can spend to support you. Then they get to go home as part of the solution and not just as part of the cannon fodder in the audience, you
Right.
know?
Talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned that paddle raise. What are your thoughts on this, and how instrumental should it be? Because it seems like we've educated our guests to know that they can do this, and so maybe they can't participate in the live auction for a myriad of reasons. But the paddle raise, talk to us about what that looks like, because I think that that's a missed opportunity.
So paddle raise, also known as a special appeal or a fund to need, a bunch of different names for it.
Mhm.
Moment in that event where you're asking for simple cash contributions in defined amounts. And it's usually on a descending scale. You start high, ask for
Mhm.
some outrageous amount of money. You've got some, never start at a number where you don't have a committed pledge out in the audience.
Right.
Nothing kills a paddle raise faster than crickets in the audience. But here's what I'll tell you. If you can hire a trained benefit auctioneer, somebody who knows how to conduct one of these, and they are more difficult than they look. They're much more difficult to do than they look. Um, if you can find somebody who's really good at doing them, it is probably the most important thing you can do in your fundraising event. We ran the numbers for about 20 years worth of events. And for those organizations who included a paddle raise in their event, the paddle raise was almost always worth about 50% of what they raise on that night.
Wow, that's amazing. And I would have never guessed that. And I do applaud your comment about a trained benefit auctioneer. I agree with you. That is something that is just critical. And it, time and time again, you go to events and you see those that use the benefit auctioneers, how much more interesting they are, fun, engaged. The engagement level is incredibly high versus the local weatherman. Not to knock the local weathermen, but a lot of people are like, they're on TV, they'll be able to do this. And it's like, no, this is something that they go to school for. I mean, it's not easy. So
It's
thank
not
you.
easy.
Yeah,
And you
thank
know
you.
what? We've run numbers on this. They're usually worth 2 to 3 times their fee in marginal revenue. So revenue that you would have earned with them, but not without them.
Right.
So
Love that. Love that. And I love that metric that you can help point us towards that, and why
yeah,
that's a basic,
if you can
not
afford the
basic.
upfront, the thing that is problematic for a lot of groups is the upfront investment in the auctioneer. But if you can swing that, it will pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that. Now, let's talk about that in relationship to some of these online aspects. Are you seeing anybody successfully do quote unquote paddle raises or fund a need online?
Not
Or is that,
anymore.
yeah,
Not
it's
anymore.
all
I mean, you
ballroom.
know, there was a period of time, there was a short moment. It was basically about 18 months during the thick of COVID,
So good.
where in virtual events where you could do paddle raise in real time,
Mhm.
people sitting out in so you had a leaderboard and all that kind of stuff
Right,
that you needed.
right.
People were willing to do it for a while. Um, as soon as the lockdowns ended, however, two things really started taking place. One, the virtual events started being less successful,
Mhm.
and two, organizations didn't want to do them anymore because they weren't any fun.
Yeah.
They just weren't any fun. I mean, they were what we needed to do to get through the year, and
Yeah.
so we built a wonderful virtual auction platform, and we still have customers that will use it once or twice a year. There's a
Mhm.
use case for a virtual live auction platform. If you've got a nonprofit with a national or a regional scope, but a very small staff located in one city, a virtual event might make sense. But for the most part, they're not that much fun, and they stopped being as effective as they were when they stopped being as necessary as they were.
So interesting. I really appreciate you talking about that event structure because that's kind of one of those things that I feel like we're trying to figure that out. Like we've educated our guests and our supporters to do this. And I've heard from so many nonprofit executives who feel like the hybrid event or a virtual event, if there's an option that it takes away from ticket sales because people are like, oh, I don't have to dress up. I don't have to get the babysitter. I don't have to eat the rubber chicken dinner, whatever reason. And I see you nodding your head. You think that's true?
I do. I do think it
Yeah.
is true. I do think it hurts ticket sales, and I do also bring out the rubber chicken objection all the time.
Hmm.
So, but the thing that I think is okay to do, I think it actually is working and it's fine, is to carve out an element of your fundraising event, one of the elements, and put that online. Usually, it's the silent auction.
Hmm.
But I do tend to think of a fundraising event as sort of a department store where there's a bunch of different little boutiques that people go and spend money at in whatever
Yeah.
mix they want to spend money in.
Yeah.
And you want to keep the sexiest of those at the event. You know, you want to keep the ones that are really going to drive ticket sales at the event.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it's okay to take something like your silent auction and put that online ahead of time. That helps extend your reach a little bit. It'll make you a little bit of money from the people who are truly allergic to nice clothes. And you know, and it gives you the opportunity to say that you're being inclusive. You're being more inclusive.
Hmm.
But yeah, the things that are really sexy about your fundraising event, your live auction, definitely. And then maybe even things like sign up parties, which do tend to help drive ticket sales. I would make those event only portions of the fundraiser.
And explain to me what that is. I don't
A sign
understand. I
up
don't,
party?
yeah.
Yeah, sign up parties are wonderful. They are fixed price, high quantity opportunities for somebody to make a contribution. And in exchange for that contribution, they get to do something fun in the future that has been donated by one of your supporters. So, my example is I like to do a pig roast on July 4th at my house every year. And
Okay.
if you ever happen to be in Portland on July 4th, drop on by. It's okay. But I'll donate this as a sign up party to my Rotary Club auction. People go to my Rotary Club and for 35 bucks a head, they sign up to attend my pig roast. The club keeps the money and
Wow.
then everybody comes over and we have a great time on July 4th. And the thing about these is that if you establish these can become perennial items
Yeah.
and then people will buy tickets to go to your fundraising event so that they can sign up to go to the pig roast later on.
Wow.
They
Okay.
are they are ticket sale driving,
Yeah.
kinds of items.
So along those lines, Roger, do you feel like some of these online components, like the silent auction, do you think that needs to run close to or in tangent to a fundraising event, or does it work when it's like, let's say you have a fall gala and you do your online stuff in the spring? I mean, how what are you seeing in terms of aligning those two pieces?
It's changing all the time. I mean, I used to strongly suggest that you do your online auction as a cleanup 3 weeks
Mhm.
after your event. Anything that didn't sell, whatever, you just do it as a kind of a garage sale to tidy up
Mhm.
afterwards.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, then we started seeing the off-season online auction be a thing, and I think that that is a really good thing for any organization that's got the ability to concentrate on putting on a fundraising event twice a year. If
Mhm.
you've got the bandwidth, the wherewithal to be able to organize those, even though one is much smaller and easier,
Mhm.
you do need to consider this. Right now, the trend in the marketplace is to run them ahead of time for about 7 days, close them before the event, close it like 3 or 4 days before the event so that you can basically have all of that stuff wrapped up and ready to deliver to people. And then at the event, you have an event that requires a smaller footprint, perhaps, because you don't have to merchandise all the silent auction items, et cetera.
Right.
And that's making sense for a lot of organizations right now. Um, so it's a matter of for which one is right or suggested. I'm gonna take the coward's way out and say that this is a cultural thing.
Yeah.
You really have to understand who your supporter base is and who your staff is before you can answer what's best there.
So, along those lines, since you're an expert in this, how do you feel, or what should we be looking for with, I'm going to call them commissioned products? There are companies out there that
Consignment
order
items.
consignment, but also commissioned, where
Hmm.
they're like, they'll go out and they will organize an experience, generally travel, and then they'll take a percentage of what you're able to bid up. And usually these are more higher end ticketed items. What are your thoughts on that versus an organization trying to pull these things together themselves?
Yeah. So there's a problem with commission and consignment items.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the problem is that the donor or the supporter who is out in the room who is bidding on these items
Mm-hmm.
does not make the distinction. If
Right.
they're going to bid $4,000 on this trip and you're going to make 1,000 because you've got a $3,000 buy rate on it if it's a
Mhm.
consignment item, or you've got a 50% commission to pay to somebody,
Mhm.
the donor who's buying the item really doesn't know that and doesn't want to know it.
Yeah.
In their mind, they're donating $4,000 to your organization. They are
Mhm.
making a contribution that will result in you having $4,000 to use to enact your programs, when in reality, you're not. So in
Mhm.
their mind, they're deducting that $4,000 from the total amount that they would want to spend to support your organization,
Mhm.
um, when in reality, only a fraction of that's going there. That
Mhm.
said, I do have a really good use case for these kinds of items. I say use them judiciously. Get as much donated as you can get donated. It's worth the work. It's not that
Mhm.
difficult to do. I mean, it's tricky and it's a pain in the neck, but it's really not that hard.
Yeah.
The get as many donated items as you can, but then circling back to our earlier comment about ticket sales and how important that
Mhm.
is, and our comments about you're going to need to have some fat wallets in the room. Okay. I really believe that a consignment item to draw in a particular fat wallet can be worth it. If
Mhm.
there's, Bob Big Shot out there and you need Bob Big Shot to come to be present for the special appeal because he's going to be your anchor donor, but
Mhm.
he's kind of feeling a little tired. He's feeling a little fatigued, but he happened to notice that his wife really wants to go to Bali this year.
Right.
Go get
Exactly.
a frickin' Bali trip and put it in your auction, and then Bob's going to come and he's going to buy the Bali. And that's when I
Mhm.
think
It
paying the
works.
commission on those is potentially
Mhm.
worthwhile if you needed to get particular people into the room.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think they're problematic, and they do tend to lend themselves to this mindset that some of the larger charities will have, which is that, oh, I'm just going to run this as a break even. We're going to just try and break even on this. I just need to cover my costs, blah blah blah.
Right. Right.
And that's been an attitude that many larger nonprofits have had for a long time, and that
Yeah.
it's about recognizing the big fat wallets. It's about those things, and I understand that. But at the same time, I said it earlier, I'm a fundraiser. I
Right.
want my fundraising events to raise money.
I love it. Well, Roger,
Right.
this has been a great conversation. We've been with Roger Devine, co-founder of schoolauction.net. You can learn all about Roger and his team, their work, their products at schoolauction.net and learn about the different ideas and cutting edge technology that is really working. Roger, I have so enjoyed this conversation.
Me
Thank you
too.
for being with us.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much. And you ever want to call me back, give me a call.
Okay. Well, you know what? It's you made the comment in the green room. You know, the reality is, and if you're in a public school or private school, large or small, fundraising is a big part of this. And so obviously you do more than schools, but I mean, this is something that is really now a part of our culture, and we need to be understanding that there's a way to get involved. We have presenting sponsors that are involved with us each and every day. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and Fundraisers Friday. These are the folks that join us week in and week out. As we like to end each and every episode of the Nonprofit Show, we end with this mantra. Simple but very complicated. And it goes like this: to stay well so you can do well. Thanks, everyone.